And we're good to go. Everyone, welcome back to 305 Takes. We got a quick episode for you guys today. It is Friday, October 27th, and we're going to preview some matchups for the NFL because we have quite a good slate of games. But who knows, they could surprise us because we didn't like most of the matchups, but we do have highlighted some of it. So let's just hop straight into it. We're going to talk about our first matchup, which actually involves our hometown team, the Miami Dolphins. And then, Myles, the Dolphins are coming back into this week. They're playing the Patriots, who beat the Buffalo Bills. And the Dolphins are trying to bounce back after their loss against the Philadelphia Eagles. And rumors are speculating that Jalen Ramsey might play in this game. We don't know. But what do the Dolphins need to do in order to bounce back this week after that tough loss against the Eagles?
I'm low-key kind of concerned about this matchup because going up against the Eagles, we knew that Xavier wasn't playing. Jalen Ramsey hadn't been cleared yet. And then we had the unfortunate incident with Javon Holland and David Long running into each other. Javon Holland was cleared to return to the game and then self-reported concussion symptoms. And now we're at Friday. McDaniel spoke with the media yesterday on Thursday and said that Holland remains in concussion protocol. So I'm a little concerned with the depth that we have going into this game in the secondary. However, the one bright spot is we are playing the Patriots, and outside of last week, it's not like their passing game has been much of anything this season. But I hope they just haven't found their groove on offense, and then this is the wake up party after the Bills game. But I want to see the Dolphins offense be able to get back on track as far as running the football, because we saw in the earlier matchup with New England, they did a pretty good job of limiting Tyreek in that matchup. Waddle was in and out of the lineup, dealing with an injury in that one as well. So I do want to see the offense be able to run the ball and kind of take control of the clock and being able to control the time of possession, so that the defense that is probably going to be banged up going into this one doesn't have to feel the burden that they did last week with the offense not really being able to move the ball. And then secondly, can we get the offensive line back on track even if we're still dealing with injuries? Because we know New England's going to try to bring pressure. And especially now on defense, it's even a different look than what we saw in that earlier matchup, because their first round pick, Christian Gonzalez, is out for this matchup. They did bring in JC Jackson from the Los Angeles Chargers, who was not obviously with the team the first time that these two teams squared off. So I do want to see what New England's going to do as far as the defensive game plan. I'm sure they're still going to try to do everything in their power to take away Tyreek, which means that we need someone else to step up, or we need to get back to being able to control the running game and get Mostert going. So that's what I think are going to be the Dolphins' keys to winning this one. And then I'm kind of intrigued to see what we get out of this Patriots team. I think it's interesting that they were able to kind of manhandle the Bills. I know the Bills took a late lead in that one, but they were able to run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson. Their first couple of drives, they were moving the ball through the air pretty effectively. Mike Gesicki caught the obviously game-winning touchdown last week, and they were able to get Demario Davis involved. We'll see. Because in that week 2 matchup, we had the Xavier Howard interception over Devontae Parker, and I don't think we're going to get too many balls thrown to Devontae Parker's way this week.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for this matchup, what I really want to see, I do want to see the Dolphins run the football because they've done such a good job running the football all season. And when the Eagles stopped it, like the Dolphins offense was pretty stagnant at that point. So I do want to see how they run the football. I would like to see how Jeff Wilson is going to be used in this game because I do feel like if you can have him and Raheem Mostert at least like get rushing attempts, even if it's nowhere, at least you're attempting to rush the ball and you're not being such a one-dimensional offense. Because I think once the Dolphins become a one-dimensional offense, it plays into the Patriots' strengths, which is like, all right, this is what they're going to do. As long as we keep doing this, we'll be fine. So I feel like if the Dolphins can at least run the football consistently, I think they'll be great in this matchup. The only thing that would also concern me is, like you said, the secondary. this is if Jalen Ramsey comes back. If Jalen Ramsey is able to play in this game, obviously this gives the Dolphins a morale boost. But I also wouldn't be expecting much because he has not played football in a long time. He hasn't suited up this year at all. It's gonna everyone's already kind of like in mid-season form, where it's like, all right, we know like condition, what do we have to do and everything. Where Jalen Ramsey, it's gonna be his first time suiting up. He'll have like all the emotions running and everything, but it's not like he hasn't been practicing a lot. He hasn't. So I'm definitely curious to see how this Dolphins defense is going to fare against this Patriots offense. Because like you said, pass catching wise, no one there really scares me. I mean, I would say as a pass catcher, I think Ramondre Stevenson is very good in that department. But I also know I'm like, all right, your offensive line is not the best either. So I do I feel like this could be a good game? I think so, just because most of these games between the Dolphins and the Patriots do end up pretty close. Sometimes it's one possession, other times it's like maybe 10 points. But I'm expecting at least a good game. If I feel like if Miami gets the running game going, I feel like it's going to be a long day for New England because at the end of the day, we know it's hot down here in Miami, and once if the Dolphins get it as what they want as a track meet, it's hard for teams to keep up with them.
Yeah, and to your point, Tyreek also missed practice on Thursday, but he said he's quote good to go for the game. So we'll see exactly what his status is and if he has any injury tag going into the game. And Mike McDaniel also said today that they expect Connor Williams to be back from the injury that prevented him last week. So hopefully that'll solve some of the problems up front. And they're still going to be shuffling guys around as far as the offensive line goes because they did lose Isaiah Wynn. I hope they stop playing Liam Eichenberg like altogether. I get that he's like their
I
sixth
want him
offensive
to
lineman.
see this and then subtweet us.
I don't even care. He's going to subtweet us off the burner account. But the Dolphins also get the boost of wearing the white throwback jerseys as well this week. So I am excited to see. I am excited to see what this looks like, and hopefully with Jalen Ramsey coming back, even if it's just in a limited action and he's building his way back up, eventually he comes back and looks like the old Jalen Ramsey that we're used to, and we can get Eli Apple off this team because thankfully it hasn't burned us to this point in the season. There hasn't been an Eli Apple moment, but I just feel like the longer he's on this team and on this roster, the chances just increase even greater every time he's out there that something bad might happen
I
at
love
any
how
given
at
point that
first it
he's on
was
the
Cater
field.
Kohu, and then this week it's like no, bro,
I
it's
like Cater Kohu. He just got burned by Stephon Diggs, but I mean, I can't be mad at him. It wouldn't have been any different. It wouldn't have been any different, I think, if Eli Apple was there too. I think that they were just picking the lesser between two evils, and hopefully we learn that matchup. And even the deep ball he gave up, Kohu gave up to AJ Brown.
that
We
was
were
just a
talking about it.
perfect ball
Yeah,
placement.
perfect throw, perfect pass, like that. And even he was in perfect covered position. So it's not even like I can be mad at him and say he got burnt there. It's just what it is. And then on the other side, I also want to know how much fight New England has because going into last week, I thought they were kind of dead in the water and might start looking to tank to get a higher draft pick. And then,
They
you know,
fought.
and they fought, they beat Buffalo. They were able to control that game for most of it. They get Bill Belichick his 300th career win. So we'll see. And did you know that Bill Belichick, without Tom Brady as his quarterback, has a worse career winning percentage than Lovie Smith?
Yeah,
So
I saw
I
that.
do think there is some added motivation for Belichick to get the season at least somewhat on track,
Yeah,
especially when you consider how bad the offense looked last year, and everybody had the question of what are you doing because we know we all saw Matt Patricia as a defensive coach, and then you put him in charge of the offense.
it's like man, he's so good on defense. He's gonna teach Mac, hey, this is what the defense is throwing. Offense, you'll be fine now. Oh,
Yeah,
but
that was a wacky decision.
him and Joe Judge, the perfect offensive-minded combo you wanted your whole life.
Oh, I can't even. I don't even know what the thought process was for that one, but I do think we're in store for a really fun matchup. And you know, I just hope the Dolphins can get back on track and we get back to our winning ways and we can recap a victorious Sunday victory over
You at least
the
want to have
Kansas
a
City Chiefs.
good, at least a win, because next week that's the Chiefs game. So you want to have like a good roll and pace going into that game.
Yeah, you don't want to be coming off two losses and then having to face the Chiefs in Germany with a game to potentially either put you on a 3-game losing streak or trying to snap it. So yeah, I think this is a good game to get back on track, get the offense back to humming. The offense just because that week 2 game was weird as well. The offense wasn't great, but they were still able to move the ball, put themselves in position to score quite a few times. So it might not be as pretty as we saw against Denver, or we saw from the second quarter on against Carolina, but I do think the Dolphins should be able to come out with a victory here.
Yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins on this one too. So I think we could move on to our next topic, and we could talk about a team that on Monday we recorded, we were like, all right, we expected how this matchup is going to go, and it didn't go the way we thought. Where Minnesota beat the next team we're going to talk about, the San Francisco 49ers, who will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals this week, coming off a bye. And the biggest news going into this is that starting quarterback Brock Purdy is in concussion protocol, and it's Sam Darnold time for the 49ers. And I am nervous for the 49ers because I'm like, all right, do I think Sam Darnold is a good quarterback? I honestly don't know, because the Jets situation was so bad in Carolina. It didn't help his case at all to show that the Jets situation was bad. But now he's with a team that has George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, a lot of great players. Could he outplay Joe Burrow this one week to get the 49ers to win? I don't know. I don't know.
I thought Darnold looked all right, decent, a lot better than he definitely looked in New England in his short time in Carolina last year. And, I thought it was definitely a possibility that he might be the starting quarterback coming into the season, just because I didn't know where Brock Purdy would be at as far as recovery from the offseason elbow surgery that he had to go through. But this 49ers team really got banged up from that Browns game. And I want to know how many times I'm going to have to reference this Browns game, because it was honestly one of the more unpredictable
Physical
games that
game.
we had this season. And then, obviously we've seen Debo suffers the shoulder fracture in that game. McCaffrey has the oblique injury, but then goes into Monday and looks incredible for somebody that had an oblique injury. They were without Trent Williams in that game as well. And then now they're looking at going into this one without Brock Purdy, their starting quarterback. So I am interested to see what they do as far as an offensive game plan. Like, is it just to try to get the ball to McCaffrey as much as possible, which is kind of sort of what their game plan was going into the Minnesota game? It was really McCaffrey or Kittle or bust. I know Ayuk had a good first quarter, but then after that, he was pretty much a no-show for the rest of the game. So I am interested to see what Kyle Shanahan just does as far as an offensive strategy point, like where and how do they get his playmakers the ball? Because obviously, I think if I'm Darnold, I'm going to be looking McCaffrey first, Kittle second. Like, that's basically going to be my only 2 reads and try to go from there. But the only thing is, and this is another point, is that you know even with Purdy being out of this game, if the 49ers, who we usually are expecting to have a dominant defensive line, be able to get after the quarterback, really hasn't been the case in the last 2 games. And you look at the quarterbacks they lost to PJ Walker and they lost to Kirk Cousins, 2 guys who I think, if you did generate more pressure on them, would give you opportunities to win the game. So I want to see if they're able to exploit a Cincinnati offensive line that we still obviously is not the strong suit of their offense. So I want to see, especially if Nick Bosa can get back on track. They made the trade for Randy Gregory, who we all thought was a good buy low, see what happens type of move. Javon Hargrave, who they signed in the offseason for, the big extension from Philadelphia. It really hasn't translated to the dominant defensive line that we've seen in years past from San Francisco, but they're still obviously really good on both sides of the ball. But I do want to see what Darnold looks like. And it is interesting that, they signed Darnold and then they moved on from Trey Lance, and now Purdy is in concussion protocol. I would assume is going to miss this game. We'll see because they are staying at home, so it's not like he has to get on the plane and then see how he feels after the plane. He has all of his medical staff and everything that he needs from the team already there. So maybe there is a chance that he gets cleared before the game, but I would just assume going into this one that it is going to be Darnold starting. But it would have been interesting to see if they would have kept Trey Lance, who would have won out this week's battle between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. And, who knows? Because Purdy got his opportunity from both Lance and Garoppolo getting injured during the season. And
Trey Lance takes his
how
job back
funny would
after
it be
Brock
if Brock
Purdy.
Purdy gets his job taken by Sam Darnold?
Ooh, I thought you were talking in the case of like if Trey Lance was still with the team, Trey Lance gets his job back from Brock
Okay, yeah,
Purdy.
either one. It would have been interesting to see either one, and especially because it's Lance that was drafted third overall, and then Purdy ends up taking his job. Then Purdy gets injured and is replaced by the former second overall pick. That would be pretty funny irony right there.
It's full story.
So I honestly, now that we've talked it out a little bit, I'm rooting for the 49ers to win big against Cincinnati, just so we can have a little bit of a storyline like, oh, is Purdy that good? Is it the system? Who do the 49ers even need a quarterback?
That would actually be the question, but then people would be like, look back at the NFC title game. Of course, they need a quarterback.
Yeah, Josh Johnson.
Yeah, so
Not everybody can be
I
Purdy.
mean, we'll see. But I am curious how you said for like the part of 49ers defense. I want to see how they approach Cincinnati because Charvarius Ward, who I think is not a bad corner, I think he's actually a good corner. Who is he going to line up against? Is he going to line up against Jamar Chase, or is he going to line up against T Higgins? And then for
And we
the
saw what Addison was able to do against
yeah,
the defense. He was consistently getting open
yep,
against the 49ers as well. So I think this is a moment that could definitely benefit Cincinnati, especially coming off the bye. I think this could be a big game for the offense, especially if this 49ers defensive line is performing below expectations again.
yep. So I am curious to see how Cincinnati approaches this. Are they going because week two it was all T Higgins or bust, and then after that it was just Jamar Chase or bust because T Higgins got hurt, and then we had that game where Jamar Chase was insane,
Yeah.
and
15 catches against the Cardinals.
but then after that it was just like, all right, we still see the same flaws with this team, but we also could possibly see Joe Burrow. I mean, do they get back on track after?
Because
I
they
mean,
have to start winning. They're at 3-3 and 2-4 in
oh,
their own division already
yeah, like the Cincinnati
against.
has to start piling up some wins. So this is probably make or break for them. I think, even though by rule, not really, but
Yeah.
I also look at their game against the Seahawks, like we said, where I was like, if Geno Smith just plays a little bit better, you lose that game.
Yeah, and then you look at the rest of their division. You have the Ravens, who are currently first, going to Arizona. So they're
Pittsburgh,
yeah. You have Pittsburgh, who goes into Los Angeles last week and wins somehow, some way. And then this week, Pittsburgh has Jacksonville coming to Pittsburgh. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. There's last week, the Bengals were on a bye and actually lost ground in their division because because Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh were all able to grab a victory last week.
yeah. So they have to start doing something because there's only 7 playoff spots, and right now, if the things stand the way they are,
And
the
there's a
Chiefs
lot of good teams in the AFC.
the Chiefs are a 1 seed. The Dolphins would win their division, and the Ravens would win their division. Oh well, either that or Pittsburgh. Forgot. Oh no, I think it's Pittsburgh because they beat Baltimore. So and Cincinnati would be out of the playoff race. They would be out of it. So they need to start piling up these wins because if they don't, their season is over real fast, real quick, and it's kind of like, all right, now Joe Burrow's extension kicks in. Are you going to pay Jamar Chase? What's going to happen with T. Higgins? What's going to happen with the rest of this defense and the offensive line? Like, what's going to be the approach going into the offseason? So I am curious to see how that goes. But I think now we could move on to probably, I don't like saying this, but it is the truth. The most talked about NFL team in all the sports, the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to be playing the frisky Los Angeles Rams. And I don't know about you. I like the Rams in this game, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Dallas kind of like just beats them.
Yeah, I think this one is kind of a similar situation as the game we just talked about because I personally like the Rams a little bit in this game. The only thing that gives me hesitation is if Micah Parsons and that Cowboys defensive line just owned uh, the Rams up front on the offensive line because Stafford's obviously a different quarterback under pressure and just his decision making, and it's not like he has a great offensive line unit in front of him already. So that would be the one thing that concerns me. But if they're able to give him time, I think Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua can absolutely go off against this Cowboys secondary. And especially because it's not like they're guys that need to get down the field and stretch the defense. It's just, over the middle and you throw it to them, they're catching basically everything that's coming their way. So I think
Tyler
there
Higbee
is,
too. Tyler Higbee's been a big part of their offense.
which is why I honestly really do like the Rams in this game. But they've been so inconsistent this year, and I really don't know how they lost that Pittsburgh game. I mean, I understand that this is just kind of what Pittsburgh does at this point, but at home, it should have been a game that they were able to go ahead and get the W with. But and then I want to see if their kicking game is going to improve because last week they had the two missed field goals and a missed extra point. They released Brett Maher, their kicker from last week. They signed a second-year kicker off the Browns practice squad. So I guess we'll see how that'll impact with the special teams. But I really do lean LA. So they've been they've been put in a lot of situations because they're trying to come from behind and pull out some of these victories late in the second half. But they've hit fourth down conversion attempts at a 75% clip this year, which is second in the NFL. However, they've only gone for it on fourth down 8 times and
Okay,
have
so
faced fourth down and less than 5 to gain 25 times, which is fifth most. So there is that opportunity of, okay, can we gain just a couple more yards to make it easier on our offense? And especially because when you consider that Kyron Williams, who was pretty consistent for them to start off the season, is out, and now they're back to the Darrell Hendersons of the world and Royce Freeman, guys like that, of that nature. So can they establish a running game? And then for Dallas, the reason that I think there's a possibility that we don't see a dominant defensive line performance is because Leighton Vander Esch went out late in that, was it, I think, the San Francisco game, right? Not the Los Angeles game, where they lost Leighton Vander Esch. And since then they've had Parsons move back to linebacker, the spot he was drafted at coming out of college, and he hasn't really been rushing off the edge as much because they need that personnel over at the linebacker unit. So I could see a situation where they're able to combat the defensive line, and then on offense, I'm still not convinced that they're clicking at 100% because I still think that there's ways for Pollard to get involved, that they're not utilize him correctly. And then the one thing that I am concerned about is that Dak is going to just hit CeeDee Lamb over and over and over and over again in this game because the Rams defense, while it is, I would say, above average, they're just very inconsistent and young in that secondary. So I could see Dak just going to old reliable CeeDee Lamb just over and over in this game.
yeah, no, that could very much happen. If not, I could probably see him hitting Jake Ferguson up the middle of the field because I think Ferguson is actually a much better tight end than what most people want to give him credit for. Because I don't think he's been playing bad at all. The one thing for the Cowboys, I feel like if this happens, if they lose this game, I see that rumor of them like trading for Derrick Henry. I think it becomes more realistic just for them. It's like, all right, if we could at least trade for Derrick Henry, we might have a shot. So at least, it's like, hey, we'll split the carries between him and Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard will be more fresh on the field, and we could probably use him on passing downs. And then we'll just give Derrick Henry kind of like that Ezekiel Elliott role. But I mean, I'll have to see. But for the Rams part of this, for me, if they want to win this game, like they need to protect Stafford. I kind of like you said, when he's under pressure, obviously he's an older quarterback, so his mobility is very limited. And it's kind of like, all right, it's either Puka, Cup, or Higby, and then it's kind of bust.
Yeah, sometimes 2-2. That's it.
Yes, sometimes
Sometimes
two.
like a random deep shot to 2-2.
Yeah. So I would tell Dallas, I mean, you have Stephon Gilmore, so you know that side of the field is kind of pretty much safe. But it's gonna be all right. Do they move Cooper Cup into the slot to get any like matchup between him and Stephon Gilmore switched and everything? I'm definitely gonna be looking for that because I do think the Rams have if the Rams attack the middle of the field, I feel like that's where they're actually going to benefit so much in this game. Because I don't like who's ever being guarded by Stephon Gilmore on the outside as compared to the other side where I'll have to see what they do. But I feel like if Dallas loses this game, really, I do feel like they're gonna go out and try their hardest to get Derrick Henry. Where the rumor is now it's either gonna be the Ravens or the Cowboys. And personally, if I'm the Ravens, I do that trade right now. But if I'm also, I would say if I'm Dallas too, I do that trade right now also. So it's definitely going to be something to watch for it. I just wish the Rams had a collectively a better team. If not, I would have no problem picking them in this matchup.
And one of the reason I do like the Rams this week too is because this might be a classic look ahead spot for the Cowboys as their schedule goes at Eagles following this Rams game, home against the Giants, so two divisional foes that they have coming up next week, and that Cowboys Eagles game is probably going to be one of the more anticipated games that we have going into next week. So I could see them you know, potentially taking this under 500 Rams team who just is coming off of a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers and taking them a little lightly. And, we saw them do that earlier this year against another NFC West team in the Arizona Cardinals, and
Yep.
Arizona was up for the task and able to knock off the Cowboys. So I honestly do like the Rams in an upset this week.
Well, I'll go with the opposite. I'll take the Cowboys in this one, just that we kind of have a difference on it. But guys, now it's time for our segment on Fridays that we promised you guys. It's Miles's best bet times. Miles is going to give you a series of bets, and he's going to tell you which ones he likes, which ones he thinks you guys should go after for. And remember, we're not saying to gamble it for sure, but it's like, hey, if you look at them, they're actually not that bad.
Yeah, so for me, I think there's a couple different ways to go about this week because I don't think there's too many teams that you have 100% confidence in winning this week. I think there's going to be a lot of games where you're looking at the spread and like, okay, should I bet this team so I can get the points? How should I approach it? So for me personally, the only game that I kind of feel confident in, like, all right, this is how I feel like this game is going to shake out, is I think Jacksonville going to Pittsburgh is a game that we should target. I like Jacksonville. They're -2.5 now. It started at -1.5. I think even up to a field goal is still a good move just because we saw how Trevor Lawrence and that offense looked against a good Saints defense. Obviously, they've had their struggles on offense, the Saints, but their defense has been solid and probably the unit that's been keeping them in games all year. And that was with Trevor Lawrence on a short week after being banged up. Now they have Pittsburgh, who had a big win last week against the Rams, coming back home from the West Coast, and Jacksonville's had since last week Thursday to prepare for this one. So I really like Jacksonville in this matchup. You can give me the 2.5. I wouldn't even be mad if you don't want to lay the points and take the -130 on the money line. But that's like the only game where I'm like, okay, I can see them both covering the spread, and I think the winner clearly has an upper hand in this one. But then after that, it gets a little bit dicey on this week's betting card. But I really do like the Rams +6.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I already said I like the Ram. I kind of like the Rams to win straight up, but as far as a betting perspective, I like +6. Maybe wait to bet it a little bit in game if the Cowboys get the ball first and they're able to score, and you can get a +10, +9. Then I'm really like that one. And then as far as over under this week, I'm kind of scared to even discuss these two offenses in the same category. But the Jets and the Giants, I think, is a low key spot that we need to target only because I think the Jets can get out to an early lead in this one, maybe a 10-0, a 7-0, a 13-0 going into midway through the second quarter. And then when the Giants need to sit back and throw the ball more, then we can maybe see a DJ Reed interception, a Sauce Gardner interception, one of these defensive linemen, a Quinton Williams strip sack, and then sets up the offense in really good field position, similar to how we saw against the Eagles a couple weeks ago, where they were able to set up the Brees Hall touchdown late in the game. So it's at 36.5, which is essentially you need them to combine for 5 touchdowns. So can they combine each for a touchdown a quarter? And now we're sitting at 28, and then we hopefully have the defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown to carry us to the over. I think Tyrod Taylor's looked a lot better than Daniel Jones has so far.
Much
I
better.
think Brian Daboll kind of got pissed off about the narrative surrounding his team, especially because of how good and all the accolades he was receiving last year for the turnaround job that he did in New York. And I think he got tired of hearing about how awful the offensive line is. And I think he's really taken that to heart. And this offense has responded. They didn't put up the points, but they were able to move the ball in Buffalo. Last week, they were in control of that Washington game from pretty much the opening drive, and they kind of exposed how bad Sam Howell was. So I think this Giants team is kind of finding their groove. And I've asked this a couple of times. Tyrod Taylor might just be better than Daniel Jones. So I'm not seeing a
I'm not
huge
mad if
drop.
someone says that.
I'm not seeing a huge drop off in the two quarterbacks. So I think this is a good spot to target. Not my favorite, and is probably going to be an ugly, sweaty game, but we'll see how it goes.
That's not those are solid bets. I wanted to throw this one at you.
Talk to me.
I was thinking of taking the over in this game, and it's the Eagles Commanders game. It's at 43.5.
Eagles Commanders.
Just because their last matchup, they both had 30.
I just, after watching how bad the Washington offense looked against New York, I don't know if I can trust them again. I don't get the commitment to Sam Howell.
Oh yeah, no, I understand, but I also feel like if it's gonna be like a huge mismatch, and the Eagles have like what 31 points to the 17 points that
And
the
it
Commanders
could be
have.
a similar situation where the Eagles get up to a big lead, and then and Washington has to start throwing the ball, and we could see a pick six, or that defensive line be able to make a play for a similar how I'm hoping for in the Giants Jets game.
So I feel like that one could be good. But guys, that's kind of much it for us on football. We're gonna give you more of a deep dive on Monday. But before we do, I think we could talk a little bit about basketball, because basketball just started this week, and our Miami Heat played the Detroit Pistons to open up this year. They're 1-0, 1-0. Even though it's only one game, they got the win. But Miles, I will say this: what I really liked in that game, I actually really like the core that Detroit has. I just feel like if they could get some veteran pieces, I feel like they would be so much better. Because Cade was great in that game.
It
Jalen
was
Duren, I thought he got off to a good start. Isaiah Stewart, I think he's okay. I'm not gonna say
The
he's
Thompson twin looked amazing too. He had
Asar
those
was
three
really
blocks
good.
in 5 minutes against the Heat. Um, I think this, from a Heat perspective, I think for me personally, I've already come to the realization, or I guess I just assume that this team is not going to be all that good. I think they're going
You
to be
had the
super
epiphany come into
inconsistent.
your head. It's like, oh my gosh.
I think they're going to be super inconsistent, but I'm completely at peace with this decision, and I'm gonna root for them hard because I still think they're gonna be a really competitive, scrappy team, especially with Spoelstra as the coach and Jimmy Butler. They're gonna still try, and the care factor is gonna be there. My only question is can we just stop playing Lowry? Like, let's just be mediocre and inconsistent, like I think we're gonna be already. But let's just do it without Lowry. Like, give it
Can
to
Jovic
somebody
get some
young.
minutes?
Can Jovic get some minutes? Can we start Hawkes at point guard? I don't care what the solution is. Just stop playing seven, please.
man, it's
That's my only request for the season. I don't even need a playoff spot. I don't need to get out of the play and just stop playing seven. And I'm fully bought into this team. I think it's going to be an emotional roller coaster because there's going to be nights where you're up 16 against Detroit and then don't score for the last 5 minutes of the game and win by one, with Detroit having a shot at the end of the game to potentially win it.
and Jimmy had like the good defense. Just Cade made a miss, and then when Cade shot it, I was like, "Oh man, this might go in." Considering the
Yeah,
way
he
he
made
was
a
playing
great
the
move.
whole night.
He made a great move, and then Love missing that wide open three that they got the
Yeah,
possession before to set up the Detroit position to try to go and win it. Cade having 30 on us was surprising, and I don't
I
know.
was
I
happy
don't know.
for him
We'll
because
have
he
to
was
see
coming
about
off
this
that
year.
injury, and everyone knows, like we've said it, we've told a lot of people, Cade's really good, and his numbers, his rookie year would have been so much better if they just had talent.
Yeah, and I've always been a huge fan of Cade since coming out of the draft. I thought there was no question should have been the number one pick. It's just been really unfortunate, especially last year. I think he only played what 9 or 10 games when he
Yeah,
got the shin injury, and then was shut down for the rest of the year. And it hurts even more as a Heat fan when you see Dave Lillard's uh, opening
yeah.
night performance for his new team in Milwaukee, and you're like, yeah, that
I
should
just
have.
love how Giannis like back away. He's like, no, no, Dame's gonna close, not me. Dame will close.
I mean, it's Dame time. It's Dame time for
But
sure.
credit to Philly because they almost pulled it off. They really did. They
They
played
hung
really
really
well.
tough. I did not expect that one. And we'll see how Milwaukee's defense looks this year because they gave up a lot of points to a Philly team that's missing their starting point guard.
Yep. But credit to Tyrese Maxey. I really think Tyrese Maxey's awesome. Him and
And he's going
Joel
to have
Embiid.
even more opportunity with Harden being out.
Yep. And Tobias Harris had a really solid game.
Oubre was going crazy.
Oubre was having
Oubre
a
was going
great game.
crazy.
A great game.
Yeah,
And the
Oubre was all over the place from Philly last night.
when you feel like everyone's gonna do that same strategy to the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, it's like, hey, get him in foul trouble early. He's not gonna be in the game if he has a lot of fouls.
I also think that he might, as he continues to play, the refereeing is going to be a little bit different. You
Yeah.
got to see how his game is and stuff, and especially because I mean, they have so many national televised games, and for me personally, I think it's a matter of if, not when, he gets hurt. So I think they're going to want to showcase him as much as possible, and there might be a little bit of a mandate from the league. Hey, let's not call this on Victor, so we can get him out there for a little bit longer.
Yeah, because I mean the first three quarters, Dallas was doing whatever they want. And then the fourth quarter, when he started like getting a lot of his points, where he had 9 points, the only thing that I disliked what the national media did is like, oh, Tim Duncan had almost the exact same stat
Yeah,
line.
that was
Victor in
super
his first
weird.
game. I was like, those are two completely different
Yeah,
players. I'm
that was
sorry.
super weird. And two people at completely different ages.
Yeah.
So it was just weird that
I
they
was
did
like,
that. But I was really impressed with the Lively kid, though, center from Dallas, their
he
rookie.
was very good. Very
Yeah,
good.
he was giving me young Tyson Chandler vibes,
Oh, I mean, if they could have a Tyson Chandler on that team, that would help them so much because
especially with Luca. Like that's
yeah.
exactly what Luca needs from the center spot. Somebody that's just big and can go throw up and catch those lobs that he's just great at.
Yeah, because I mean they're so heavy on the guard play of Kyrie and Luca, where they're great on offense, but on defense, don't expect anything from
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Nothing against them. It's just that's what we've seen throughout their time. Well, guys, we'll give you a little bit more on basketball. We're definitely going to talk about the Hawks because I know Miles has a lot to say about Trey Young, especially in his first game this year. But that's pretty much it for us. We will be back next week, so that way we'll try to give you guys a full podcast on Monday and Thursday or Friday on football, and then watch out because we will be having a basketball one very soon.
Peace.